Friday, December 21st edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Meteorologist Matthew East here with you this morning. Let's look at Banner Elk. 19 degrees there, and there has been some snow flying up there in many mountain spots. In fact, snow flying at this camera shot, it appears, at the moment. Looks like the ground is whitened there, and there's a lot of folks in the mountains that are going to get a decent little snow event. More on that in just one second. The radar, pretty quiet once you get east of the mountains. Now look at all the rain from yesterday through parts of, now it's in New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, up into New York, some snow in northern New England. And here's where the tremendous snowstorm is still cranking. Cleveland, down to Indianapolis, Detroit, much of Michigan seeing some snow. There are some snow totals in the Midwest, upwards of 18, 20 plus inches. And that little slug of moisture will continue to wrap around the bottom side of that low into the mountains, and so it's going to be a pretty good little snowy event. There's the winter weather advisory areas in purple up in the mountains. Up in West Virginia, the blue shady counties, those are winter storm warnings, and even blizzard warnings are up for a few counties there in eastern West Virginia, western Maryland, and northwestern most sections of Virginia. Here's what Stormcast is printing out for snow totals with this event. And notice again, a pretty good little snow event. There'll be numerous those favored areas in North Carolina probably picking up 3-6 inches of snow, and some locally higher amounts for sure. And then, of course, the totals will ramp up even more up into West Virginia. So we'll see. Now the winds, these are the recent wind gusts in the Triad area, and similar across most of the region, of course, higher in the mountains. But boy, it's going to be a windy day. This is what Stormcast is printing out for wind gusts. For wind speeds, rather. These are sustained winds. And there'll be wind gusts in the mountains over 70 and 80 miles per hour. There'll be Piedmont wind gusts 40, 45 plus miles per hour. And it's still going to be a fairly breezy day tomorrow, although not as windy as what we'll see today. You have high wind warnings up there in the North Carolina mountains and spilling out into the foothill areas too. And wind advisories in effect for really all the Piedmont down into the upstate of South Carolina. Temperatures cooling down. It's in the 30s. Really nothing bad about it, the temperatures right now, but again, it is fairly breezy even at this early morning hour, and it's going to be a very, very windy day, so wind chill values are going to be kind of biting out there as today unfolds. Cold air again engulfing much of the lower 48. We had highs in the 50s and 60s yesterday with the rain moving through. Today, no rain, that's gone, but the snow in the mountains, and again, it's just going to be a really, really windy day overall. Now let me get into the modeling for. So here we are today, and by the way, I'm going to show you the 18Z run of the GFS from yesterday just for fun, and also the Canadian interesting for next week too. But let me go through the next few days first. Very windy conditions out there today. You see that snow in the mountains, and then as we go out to tomorrow, the cold air just kind of settling in. A lot of folks in the Piedmont struggling to get up to around 50 at most. Still pretty breezy tomorrow. Sunday looks quiet. Highs in the low and mid 50s throughout the Piedmont and the foothills as we await the goings on next week. Okay, let's go first of all to the European. All right, this is what it looks like in the upper levels. Christmas Eve night, so the evening of Christmas Eve. There's your lead disturbance coming out, the main disturbance. This is what you need to keep an eye on behind it. That's the big system for around Wednesday. The models are still handling that fairly differently. Notice the European closes off that 500 millibar low way far west back into New Mexico and Texas, and so the result is this thing winds up turning much further to the north there. So there you see the closed low on the European all the way up into Kentucky, southern parts of Indiana. And of course, now that we've had that little computer issue, my panels are going to be all out of order, so you might have to bear with me just a bit. A little bit further out in time in the European, and that low, upper air low then heads east-northeast to near the Delmarva Peninsula. On the surface for the European then, that means, let me see if I can find that for you. All right, here we go. Now here's what it looks like on the surface for the European. There's your leadway bringing a little bit of rain on Christmas Eve, especially Christmas Eve late in the day. Christmas Day looks mainly dry, but then as you get into Tuesday night and Wednesday, there goes the low on the European. There is some cold air damming that settles in. Not enough on the European verbatim for ice concerns anywhere across, across most of the region. The further north you go toward the Virginias, that's not the case. But then you see another low pressure, secondary low beginning to pop Wednesday afternoon right over North Carolina. And then that coastal low begins to take over from there as this pulls to the north. So rain scenario, cold rain, but a rain scenario for most of us there on the European. Let's go to the GFS. Okay, let me find those upper air charts for you. All right, here's the latest run of the GFS. All right, there's the 0Z run, the latest run when I cut this video edition of the GFS. And your closed low was over parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, and then lifted to the east-northeast from there to near New Jersey by Thursday morning. So on the surface with the GFS, you wound up with a scenario like this. This is what the 0Z run looked like. Good cold air damming showing up on the GFS. Again, though, verbatim for North Carolina, the favored damming areas is not quite cold enough for wintry precip, but it's not far away on the 0Z GFS. All right, so there's Wednesday morning. Secondary low takes over near New Jersey by Wednesday evening. And by the way, still does have that system out in the longer range around New Year's or soon thereafter. It's much further north on the 0Z run, but at times it's been a big snowstorm on some of the modeling. But let me go back to yesterday's 18Z run of the GFS. This was interesting. The close low did not form. That low didn't close off until much later, and so there was the track really moving right over the Carolinas. And so at the surface, you wound up with a really good snow event for the Western Carolinas. And again, that was the 18Z run of the GFS yesterday. And of course, the latest run of the GFS is backed away from that scenario, but the Canadian has not. It kind of flipped to that scenario now with a coastal Miller A-type low Wednesday, giving a good chunk of the Carolinas some snow. So my point in being is, let me pull up one of these upper air charts. Really, it all comes down to exactly when we see this upper air low, this disturbance close off into a closed upper air low, because when it does, it begins to make that turn to the left and head more northwest. The later it closes off, the further south it goes. So we'll see. I think the most likely scenario is still the cold rain scenario for much of the Carolinas with some snow on the backside, especially for the mountains. But with that said, I cannot rule out some of these further south solutions. There's still a lot of moving pieces in this very chaotic pattern, and timing out exactly when that upper air low closes off is still difficult considering we're still 120, 144 hours away. So we'll see. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.